Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nida Fatma, and this is the Digital Design Talks, where we invite the creme de la creme of the creative tech industry to come and share their insights, experience, and knowledge on topics that surround us today. Our guest today is Marcel Hita Baró, director and founder of Hita Baró 3D. It's a 3D and a CGI-driven motion graphics studio based in Barcelona. Marcel has worked on projects for a variety of tech brands, including Microsoft, EA, and PlayStation. And he is here to talk to us about his process, his concepting process, and his technical approach behind his projects. So Marcel, thank you so much for being here today. We're really, really excited to have you.
Thank you, Nida. And thank you for having me, of course.
Yes, and everyone joining us today, thank you so much for joining us. We love the fact that you are a part of our community. And our last segment of this talk is a Q&A from the audience, everyone who's watching, that's you, for Marcel. So if you can share your questions in our Q&A panel right here in this webinar, Marcel will have some time in the end of this talk to answer them. Okay, and we're going to kick off this session with some pre-prepared questions from our VFS team. And the first question that we have for you, Marcel, is what led you to the creative tech industry? How did you start off your career, and were there any major influences?
Okay, so basically I studied advertising, but I had more technical profile, like product design, engineering, or something close to that at least. But at the end, I decided to go for advertising studies because I thought that it was this more creative world with more freedom, with working with concepts on campaigns, that it could be a more, a more interesting world than pure technical engineering, Yeah. So I started to dive into that world, and soon I discovered, I had some tests and some experience with GIMP, with Photoshop and so on, but I've started to work with Photoshop, with Illustrator, with these graphic design tools, and I realized that it was super cool and that I enjoyed it a lot. So little by little, I watched a million of tutorials, and I did like 1,000 of different little personal projects, and as everyone else. And soon I realized that with Photoshop and Illustrator, you need assets or photos or some resources or materials to work with those softwares, because at the end you can create something from scratch. But for example, if you want to work with photo compositions in Photoshop or something like that, you need those photos. And it's not the case that you can go photograph everything that you need, So I felt a bit constrained, a bit limited about that. And I was at uni looking, don't paying much attention to the class and looking at design websites and so on. Don't do that, guys. So basically, I saw this work of Cornelius Dambrick. That's an artwork called 52 Hertz, I think. And it was, that's it. Thank you, Nida. So basically, I saw this piece and I was like, wow, how the hell did he do that? What's this strange magic? So I started to investigate a bit and to explore, the technical part of that project. And I discovered that it was a thing called 3D, and it was done with Cinema 4D. That's a specific software of 3D software. And I started to think that if I wanted to do what I really had in mind, I would need to learn 3D, because at the end you can create absolutely whatever you have in mind. Of course, it depends on your skills and your experience and so on, but with time and work, you can achieve really cool things, and you can communicate what you want to communicate and what you want to say. So it was like this moment that I thought, this is my thing. Yeah.
Totally. That's amazing. And then this particular project was like you can say pivot point where you're like, I need this software, Cinema 4D. This is where, they are creating these assets that are required for my workflow. What was your 3D journey sort of like self-taught? Did you take some classes and learn cinema?
I took like a 2-week, 3-week course on Photoshop at the beginning to learn about Photoshop and graphic design. But on the 3D field, I've learned through tutorials, through references, through other artists, but it was pretty self-taught. Yeah.
Completely self-taught. And did you find the learning curve of Cinema 4D to be something that was easy to sort of like grasp, or did it take a little bit of, struggle?
Yeah, it depends a lot on the person and on the time that you want to invest on learning 3D software. For me, it wasn't that super difficult or this super impossible task to achieve, because when I want to do something, I'm like super blind and just doing that. So I had my only 3D and Cinema 4D stage. So at the beginning, I think that I've learned the basics and the principles pretty fast. But it's true that there's a key moment where suddenly you know how to do what you want to do. Because at the end, you just know how to use some tools and you just know how to apply some colors, some lights, and so on. But you don't really have the skills to achieve what you want to design. And there's this like magic moment that you realize that, hey, it's real. At last, I can do what I want to do. And yeah, but comparing with other softwares like Houdini, for example, that's more film oriented and so on, it's not a super impossible task. So whoever that wants to learn 3D, take your time and be motivated, but it's not impossible at all.
Definitely. Yeah, love that. And just on the topic of Cinema 4D and sort of like, you have been working for some of the best brands in tech out there already. But I also have seen a lot of your work that is your own personal investigation. One of the favorite pieces that I have seen this year, most recently, I would like to say, is Between 2 and 3. And if we can just open it up, and I would love for you to chat with us a little bit about this project. So how did it come about, and then your experience? So,
okay. So yeah, that's a special project for me and for Jaume. That's the other artist that I've collaborated with to create this. Jaume is, Mestra Motion. It's called on social. Look for him. He has super cool pieces. It's a 2D motion designer. So, we met at university precisely, and we started to learn our thing. Well, his thing was 2D, my thing was 3D, but we started to learn at the same time. And for years, for a lot of time, we always have this conversation of, hey man, we have to do something together. Maybe, I don't know, some crazy ideas came up, but we never found the time to really do something together. So, there's one thing that's called COVID. I don't know if you know.
I'm still trying to understand what it is. I don't get it. It's not happening.
Yeah. So basically, with the COVID explosion, Jaume had some free time at work. And a couple of projects that I have planned on the calendar were canceled by the pandemic and so on. So it was like this moment where we finally had time, both of us at the same moment, to work on a project together. So basically, we said like we want to do something different. We want to mix styles, to do your thing on 2D, do my thing on 3D, and mix it, and let's see what it comes out from here. And this is what came up.
This is insane. This is so incredible. And it is a sensation on social media. There is not a single social media outlet that I have not seen some expert or at some part of this project. It is just stunning. Everybody is like loving it, retweeting it, sharing it, posting it, everything. So yes, there was a project, and then you had your collaborator, Mestre Motion, but how did it happen? Like, how did you even think about these shapes and these almost like characters, you can say, and what was the process of the concept?
Yeah, well, the first part of the project was to decide what we wanted to do. And we had a clear idea. Well, we tried some things. We tried some more character-oriented design at first, because we thought it would be great to play with characters and make them do something strange on screen and something funny, But at the end, we really wanted to explore a more abstract and motion-oriented piece, mixing styles, because we saw a lot of super amazing pieces on 2D and a lot of super beautiful pieces done on 3D. But we didn't really see this mixing pattern of both styles. There's some exceptions that are looking cool and so on, but it's a field to explore. And so we felt motivated by that, to create something fresh, something new, not the same as we saw 1 million times. So we started designing style frames with some hero moments of the animation, something that in composition design, that's it. More graphic design, flat compositions to see what could work, what was not working. And if you see the frames, you will recognize some of them from the final pieces. And once we decided a bit what we were liking, Jaume started to do his magic with animation and so on. So I think that you have this comparison between the 2D and 3D. So basically, he started to work on the 2D animation at the same time that I was starting to work on the look at feel of the piece, working on lighting and shading. So at the end, Jaume came up with this animation. That's one of the 3 looks that we prepared. And it was like, okay, Jaume, we have something here. It's super cool. Let's see how we can do to translate it into 3D. And it was really a matter of exploring, of trying to translate everything from After Effects. He was working with After Effects to 3D. And yeah, at the end, the result, we were surprised even by the result, because as we didn't expect anything in particular, it was like a surprise for us too. And yeah, we were super happy. And after the 3D animation and so on, Jaume composed the sound effects that were the final touch to close the project.
Can we watch this? Would it be okay if I play? Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Just going to make sure I'm sharing my sound here. There we go. Sorry for that. Absolutely. Perfect is what it is. How do you even come up with these kind of moves and transitions? I know that you guys built it in After Effects and came up with the whole process, but how do you make these decisions about time and transitions?
Yeah, it was more a matter of test and error and see what was working for us, because at the end we had a guide that were those style frames or those graphic design static frames. And well, Jaume has a super good eye for 2D animation and to work on these transitions. We had some references too, of course, and we started to do tests, and some of the 2D animation that was done by Jaume, I thought that maybe we could do something a bit more interesting on that part, so I changed it, and and Jaume changed some things too. So it was like a process without a deadline. That's an important thing. Just to feel free to experiment and to adjust things and to make it feel good and to make it feel smooth.
Now, you say that there was no deadline, but what was the timeline? Like, how much time did you guys allow yourselves to spend on a project like this?
It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe if we compress all the work in single days, because at the end we were working and it was done in extra time and so on. But maybe like 3-4 weeks, something like that, if we super compress everything.
Super fast, I would say. That's incredible. Incredible. I'm just going to play this last anime. This is the last sort of like segment of this piece, which is. The animation is just so pristine. It is so crisp and on point, which is such a delight, really, and to see. Jumping on to your next project, which I've done a little bit of investigation here, but I am so excited to have you here to talk to us about story of Clotherful. So again, this is one different from your regular projects because this is more personally driven, and it is your artistic investigation. So I'd love for you to share the story behind this.
Now, at the end, this project is a mix of both, of personal driven project and artistic or technical exploration. The story behind it is that my father has like a little clothing shop near Barcelona, and it was the 14th anniversary of the shop. So I took that and I wanted to give a little present to or a little tribute, if you want to say it that way, to the clothing shop. At the same time that I really wanted to learn about clothing animation and simulations, and to learn a new software that's called Marvelous Designer. And it was like the perfect excuse and the perfect project to mix both and create something from both concepts. And another important thing is that Miriam Reed, it's my partner and super talented teacher and craft artist, and she helped me to create all the textures on this piece are handcrafted and handmade with painter and so on. And it was like a process that we created everything basically, from the textures done by hand to the cloth simulations to the lighting to the hair simulations, rendering, compositing, everything. Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about these textures that she made? So did you provide any kind of specs for her, or was this her creative freedom? And
Yeah, it was just she and I doing colorful things without overthinking too much and testing things. And these were like the winners, the ones that we liked. Of course, there are a lot of textures dead and forgotten, but
saved
no,
for next project.
yeah, maybe. No, but it was cool because it's super artisanal, is the word. So it's not like I grab some pre-made textures from the internet and I put it on my scene and wow, it looks good. And it's totally fine. But it has this personal touch that it was an extra value for me at least.
It looks like she's using watercolors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they hand painted by her using water-based paint, which is absolutely stunning. And then you bring this, feeling into your stunning 3D assets. Especially this one, I can recall it really well in the piece. It's absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. No, and at the end, it was just a matter of translating these into digital. Well, we took photos, we retouch them, make them tileable, and exporting the height maps, the bump maps, the reflection maps to make them work on 3D. Yeah. It was not a super quick process, but it was cool.
Absolutely stunning. Like right over here, we can really see that bump and displacement, coming through, which really feels almost like a velvety surface for these little dots, which is incredible. Wow. And could you talk to us a little bit about the timeline for this project?
I don't know exactly about the timelines because with personal projects, I try to not put I have a general deadline, but at the end, we are all working or doing 1 million things at the same time. And I want to do it well. I wanted to look at the piece 1 year after finishing it, like on this case, because this was done like a year ago, more or less, and think, that's cool. That's still cool. And I still like it a lot and I'm proud of this piece. So to achieve that, you need time. It's necessary. So
it's very cool. This project is, it's going to remain cool for its entire lifetime, I think, which is endless.
And at the end, the only thing that I would say about that is that Marvelous Designer, that's a software used for the clothing sims and so on. It's thought to do t-shirts, pants, and jackets and so on. And for all the students and people that want to learn 3D or 2D or whatever, the thing that I try to do with tutorials, because I watch 1,000 tutorials to make these things, is to take the basics and to do something completely different with that. Because at the end, if you follow the tutorial and you do the same, you are not really learning this technique. So here I just wanted to do super crazy cloth animations, but without any t-shirt, any super abstract, super different, and super unexpected. And yeah, I've learned a lot with that project.
I feel like they're all characters on their own. They have their personalities and behaviors, and they have very unique features to them that are not, a crossover or overlapping with one another, which is incredible. For the sake of time, I have so many questions for you, Marcel. I'm going to have to cut some of them. But the next project that I want to chat to you about is Strange Balance. Again, an internet sensation. I have seen iterations, I've seen snippets of this everywhere on social media. And I read a little bit about your story, and I would love for you to share with all of us watching today the inspiration for this project.
Yeah, the principle is more or less the same we had with Clotherpool, because my girlfriend and I have this super exciting hobby that's painting rocks. Okay, sounds strange. Don't judge me too hard, please. But no, I mean it's a cool thing to do on a Sunday when you don't have any plans and it's cool and it looks super cool at home at the end. So, and the thing that when we have, that's an example. So when we have these rocks, we always try to find the balance and to create structures, and it's nearly impossible. So I was so frustrated that I've decided to force the rocks to keep the balance, creating a whole 3D systems with connectors and with super crazy technical things just to keep the balance as I wanted.
Let me share that real quick. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna play this, if that's okay.
Okay.
From the beginning. Hey. You know, somehow I like these rocks better than the real life rocks. I think it's the way that you light and texture stuff is so beautiful, realistic. It's all really soft lights with diffuse shadows, and it's just stunning. There's the balance in the artwork, which is the objects, right? But then there's so much balance in the coloring, the lighting, the objects themselves, their placement. It's just stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. So I know I keep asking you the question, which is timeline. Because we often, as artists, we suffer because, we all want to make our personal projects. And what I see you doing really well is you manage your commercial work, and then you have your ongoing artistic investigation, right? And how do you do it? How does that balance come into play?
Well, at the end, it's super difficult to find the balance. And that's why I did this project, for the balance. Nah, bad joke. No, it's just that as a freelancer, normally you have times where you are super, super busy, and times where you have some more time to explore and to do things. If everything goes well, you have super little time to do things. So the only option that you have is to work on this once you finish the commercial project that you're working with, and to do some hours, some weekends, and to find space for this kind of explorations. Yeah, that it's not, there's no a special secret. And
do you sort of like limit yourself? You're like, okay, this year I can only take out time for, say, 2 personal projects, and the rest, I'm booked out. Or do you literally like book yourself to work on your personal projects and then you take on more work?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the amount of work and bookings that I have. But normally I try to combine them and to find time for personal projects while I'm working on commercial ones. Yeah. But yeah, I start a personal project and I don't really know when I will close or finish that. So I just let it flow and work little by little and adjust little by little. And once I have something that I like, I just pack it up and upload it everywhere. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. And now, just jumping ahead to your next project, and I do have a quite a list here, is urban wildlife. So can you talk to us a little bit about this project, which is very different from the other pieces? The other pieces do have very strong characters in them. However, these are, bipeds, 2 eyes, 2 hands characters. So what's the story behind this project?
Well, the story behind this project is that I wanted to explore character design, to be honest. It was a world, a part of 3D that it was super interesting to me. And it was just on the middle of the super pandemic crisis lockdown that I decided to start with this project to give some color to those gray days and to experiment and to create something new at the end. I don't want to do the same thing again and again. I always try to do something different with my style or my personal touch, if you want to say it that way. But this was like a super different project that I wanted to learn how to do character design. And it was the first project that I worked with characters and with cloth simulations and so on. So it was like a combination of a lot of different techniques that I wanted to join together.
But what's the inspiration behind these characters?
It's not, well.
Like, how did you come to choose like this art style?
Yeah, well, I wanted to reflect some of the profiles or stereotypes that you can find on a city. That's why it's called urban wildlife, because it's a life that's happening on the city. And I just try to find different profiles of people, super different, one from the other. And in terms of design, I didn't want to make them super realistic, but I wanted to play with realistic textures and shaders. And I done some tests, and at the end, this was what came up. And I feel that it keeps that balance between that super stylized, almost cartoony style and a realistic 3D style.
It is stunning, absolutely stunning. And each character over here has so much detail and so much attention that they really do come to life in their own space. So they end up, creating their own world around them. It's absolutely stunning.
we can see here that all the poses were pre-made and photographed. So I have a lot of photos with me like doing strange things and things like that. But this is private. I hope that you understand.
Oh, you never shared that with me, so I won't be able to. But that is how animators all across the world would pose their characters, is when they perform the characters themselves, right? They act it out. So I hear you. I have a lot of other questions for you. However, I am kind of noticing the time, and I want to ask you one last question before we jump to our next segment, which is, do you have any advice for upcoming motion designers, in current times, post or sort of like almost post-pandemic time? What should motion designers be paying attention to right now?
Well, I think that for anyone that wants to work on this field or just as a hobby, it's super important to work on personal projects, as you would see. That's my main motto. If you want to to say it that way because at the end, personal projects are this space where you can explore new techniques, do new things without rushes, without client's opinion, without these all these constraints, where you can really do what you want to do and push a bit the boundaries of your skill set and so on. So I would say that personal projects is the most important thing to do for any artist that wants to make some progress. Because at the end, with commercial projects, some of them are super amazing, of course, but at the end, it's a team, and you have normally an art director or a studio director and an agency and a client that everybody gives opinion, and at the end, your vision, it's not the same that you can translate into personal projects. So do personal projects, guys.
Love that advice. I absolutely love that advice because the first thing that we sacrifice is our personal projects when we're short on time, right? We're like, oh, I'll work on this later. And then that later is, you gotta like make time for that. I love it. So moving on to our next segment, which is our rapid fire round, we have prepared 10 questions for Marcel to answer for us. And right before we start this round, I just want to remind our audience, thank you so much for being here, and do share your questions in our Q&A panel for Marcel, because he's going to be answering them very soon. Okay, let's begin our rapid fire round. Marcel, our first question for you is, if you could choose another career apart from motion design, what would that be?
I would say music because, well, I play the guitar since I was 4. I've been on metal bands and so on. So yeah, maybe music.
Very cool. A guitarist?
Yeah. Well, I try.
Super cool. What do you do to overcome a creative block?
Yeah, I don't try usually to force myself to stay in the place and create something on that moment. So I would say do other things, go for a walk, do something else, and come back with fresh ideas.
Yeah, take a break. Absolutely. Yeah. Don't struggle through it. What's the longest amount of hours you have sat in one sitting to work on a project?
Yeah, that's one day with Jaume, but not for that project, for another one. We did like from 9 a.m. to 7 a.m. It wasn't that we came back to time 2 hours, It was like going forward in time 22 hours. So I think that's the record.
This is the reality behind motion designers on a deadline, right? This is the real deal. What project would you work on again?
Any of my personal projects, I would say. Yeah, because I enjoyed them a lot and I had a lot of fun with all of them. So any of them, yeah.
One word to describe a motion designer.
I would say, I don't know if it's too redundant, but I would say motion. In the case of the freelance, at least, because we are moving from one project to another, to one studio to another, learning new things every day. So you have to stay and to keep in motion. So
beautifully summed up. Even the software, right? It's always updating.
Always.
So it's like, I think of Gravity, the movie where you're like jumping from one scenario to another. Most inspiring artwork.
I don't have a super inspiring artwork, but maybe I would say the 52 Hertz from Cornelius Dambrick that we saw, because that's the one that was the spark that got everything started.
I love that. What's on your bedside table?
Really, my phone charger. Anything else? If I go to sleep, I go to sleep.
Last book you read or last documentary you watched?
It was a black novel book, yeah, from a Spanish author that's called Juan Gómez Jurado. It's pretty good.
It's a fiction or non-fiction?
It's fiction.
What's the worst trend right now?
Maybe the worst trend that I see on social media and so on would be directly copying the work from other artists, because you are not learning really anything new with that. And at the end, I see projects super amazing from 6 and 5, maybe those interiors from Peter Tarka, they want these abstract shapes and so on, and everyone does the same exactly. And maybe they are super cool references, but you can do something different from there. I think that's more interesting.
That's the opportunity for sure. Absolutely. Just personalize, customize that. Yeah. What's the best trend right now?
Well, I would say maybe the opposite, to take references and be inspired, because at the end, there are a lot of super amazing artists out there. And new media and real-time rendering, this kind of new technologies and new trends are super interesting. And I have to start exploring those. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I definitely want to mention and share a little bit is Marcel's work, because he has now entered into NFTs. So he is creating artwork that he has now been, posing as NFTs on the market and entering into that space as well. So just to kind of like lend into the best trend, like you said, is like how the economy is growing for us digital artists. Now we have this space, which is really amazing. Finally we have some recognition for digital artists, right? Because otherwise, people would buy a painting and put it in their house, but no one could put digital work in their house.
It's super interesting just because what you said, because at the end, you have this power of doing something and giving value to your work as an artist, not just as a tool for a commercial project, but as an artist. And it's a super cool opportunity for all of us.
Finally, right? Finally, that we digital artists have a space where they can also, make work and be represented and be in the art space, in literally like the money of the art space, not just do free work all the time.
Because at the end we saw endless paintings and sculptures like selling for crazy numbers. And digital art was like apart from that movement, and nobody knew why. But yeah, finally it's entering into that space too.
Absolutely. And we're very excited to keep up with all the amazing work that you're going to do in this space, and also in, your personal projects. So we have a lot of following to do and keeping up to do, because this is awesome. And now finally, audience, thank you so much for being here. And this is the time where we ask your questions and Marcel addresses them. So if you haven't already, share your questions in the Q&A panel and we will get to them. Okay, so our first question, Marcel, is from Quinton Lechat. And he's saying, how did you decide the speed of this really fast animation? How do you feel that it actually worked? Like, how do you make that decision?
Yeah,
Great question.
Yeah, I think that he's referring to the third animation of between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's this super crazy animation. we wanted to create some contrast between pieces, and the second piece, it was like with a more slow pace, with this balance and collision simulation and so on. And we really wanted to do something super fast, 3 seconds, pam, 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 super crazy. And this was the final result. Yeah, we tried different frame rates, we tried different speeds, and this was the one that we finally decided to go with. It's a bit crazy. I mean, don't look at this for 30 minutes straight because I've tried it and it's not possible. No, but we wanted to create contrast between the pieces. So that's why this is really crazy.
Okay. All right. Quentin has another question for you. It seems with this, with these 3 projects that you like having different scenes. Do you prefer to test multiple and show everything instead of picking one and working only on one?
Okay, that's a super good question. Yeah, it's not intentional, but I tend to do, it's different scenes, different iterations of the same principle. Maybe it is because I'm learning that technique, specific technique, at the same time that I'm creating the project. So I want to learn and to do different tests with different situations, with different kind of pieces or simulations to really learn that technique and add it to my skill set. But yeah, and I also like to work with colors a lot. So maybe if I do one composition with a dominance of blue and a color palette with blues and complementary colors and so on, I always have this feeling of and how it will look with red or with orange or with whatever. So I tried it and it's looking more or less cool. So at the end, I do all the colors all the time.
Awesome. All right. Your next question is from Alex Prestelitsky. I think I said that okay, but I apologize if I didn't get it perfectly. Can you talk about how you put yourself out there in the beginning of your career? What do you think has given you the most visibility?
Okay, so I just really started with, learning from tutorials on YouTube, on Vimeo, and whatever I could find. So there was a time where I saw, I think, absolutely all the tutorials that were on the internet. And so I started with that and trying to translate these concepts and these principles to, again, sorry for the repetition, personal projects. Because obviously at the starting point of my career, I didn't have much client or commercial traction because I wasn't a 3D artist. I was just learning the concepts, and little by little, by creating these projects and uploading them to, I created an Instagram and so on, and I uploaded the projects there. And one day I had like a DM on Instagram from a studio from Sweden that saw one of my pieces and it was super cool and they wanted something similar for them. And that was my first commercial project, I think. And it was a super cool experience because there were 2 girls in Sweden with a branding studio. They were super nice. The project had a lot of creative freedom and it was like the perfect experience to start this journey. So yeah, once I closed that job, other projects started to come, and little by little, it's like I always say that it's like a hamster wheel, where you start and it's super hard and it's slow, and each step is you have to put a lot of effort to advance. But once you start to get more inertia and so on, it's almost difficult to stop. So yeah, because at the end with clients and with so on, with social media, you start from zero, and little by little you have to build up and to create new stuff and to make people know that you exist and that you have something to say in terms of design. So yeah, it's just to put work and time on it, and don't be afraid of sharing your projects, your personal project, because that could be the trigger of a commercial project with a client. So don't be shy and share everything, at least at the beginning. That would be, yeah, a good thing to have in mind.
Yeah, I think people do fall in the shy trap. It's like they're like, oh, but I need to finish this part of this project and this part of this, and I need to render it like that. And,
No, and for example, I think that you have one of my first, no, that was my first render ever. That you look at it now and you see hopefully, I hope that everybody sees the difference between what I'm doing now and this. This was like the first time that I've opened cinema, that it was the 17th of October of 2017, exactly.
Wow.
I remember the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
1717.
Yeah. And that was my first render. So from playing with different basic shades and lightings and lights and colors and so on, I started to do more tests, to watch more tutorials, to prepare different things, and little by little, I started to learn how to work with this 3D environment.
Yeah, I love the fact that you saved your first render. You have it today. You remember the date. It's a part of the story, right? It's a part of the it's the beginning of that hamster wheel, the first step. Your next question is from Peria Corfield. How are you planning your project's timeline if the deadline is a little tight?
Okay, so yeah, it depends a bit on the project, because normally motion designers that are working as a freelancer, we are hired by studios that have like this pre-planned project with pre-planned deadlines, and you have to fit your work in there. And of course, the studios that are working with 3D and have a lot of experience know how to do the calendars and the timing plannings. But I would say that because we have the case too that a direct client comes and says, I want to do that, how much time do you need? So it's just a matter of experience, I would say, and to know how you work. Because I found on my career people that works super fast and super well, and people that needs more time. So it depends on the person too. But yeah, I would say what I do is I write down the different tasks that the project needs. So concept, modeling, texturing, animation, rendering, compositing, adjustment rounds. That's an important one. And I try to estimate how many days or how many hours it would take me to do each individual step of the process. And I just add the numbers, and I come with a final number. And from here, I can start to have a reference of timings. But of course, it's super difficult to nail the timing of a project. And usually you are mistaken for thinking that you would end with the project before. So
It's all the blind spots. It's all the stuff that the render failed, or the texture is not perfect, and la la la. I hear you, but I think you're sharing really important insights on how to make it work, because you're really successful at it. So that's awesome. Your next question is from Quinton Lichat. How do you feel, how did you feel to call yourself a 3D artist? I feel like I can add a little bit to it. Like, when was the first time you call yourself a 3D artist? And then how was that for you?
Okay. I would say that it's pretty recent that I'm starting to consider myself a 3D artist, because for me, an artist is a person that does art or makes art. So it's something personal, it's something yours, it's not for a client, but that's not a good definition too, because there are artists that work just with clients for years and are super talented artists. So I don't know. I would say that since the moment that I've started to feel comfortable with the idea that I could make what I had in mind in 3D, and to successfully work on all the stages of the process, modeling, shading, lighting, rendering, etc. It was the first time that maybe that term was appropriate for me. Yeah, but at the end, I don't consider myself anything. I just do what I like, and I try to do it well. And if somebody calls you a 3D artist, it's super good, but it's not why I do the things that I do.
Awesome. Piria Corfield has one more question. Which platform are you using to promote your work as a designer?
I started with Instagram on late 2017, and well, I'm still on Instagram, but because of the algorithm and all this super interesting stuff that you all know about, it's more difficult to reach your follower base and so on. And I've discovered like a year ago Behance. That's an Adobe design platform. That's the same with Instagram, but basically you can upload like whole projects with all the style frames, animations, add text. So you can go deeper on the project, and you can see the whole project on Behance with super high quality images and videos. So I enjoy more uploading my projects on my website and on Behance than on Instagram, because on Instagram you have compression on the videos. If the video is dark, you are basically screwed. So, and you have a lot of problems with resolutions, and it's not, well, at the end, it's not done thinking about designers. So it's totally normal that the platform is like it is. And that's why Behance is more appropriate for designers.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Behance. Our last question, I believe, for today is from Luke Marty McCrelf. Not sure if this was already asked. What kind of hardware, as far as your PC or laptop, do you use? Luke, I got to say, like, in the back of my mind, I was really hoping someone asked this, because the 3D textures is so fabulous. I want to know the graphics card.
So I've started with a MacBook Pro laptop from 2014, I think. Yeah, I think so. So a small laptop. So the people that saying, I don't have a $4,000 or euros PC, so I can do anything. For me, that's not an excuse, because you can do it's not possible to do exactly the same, of course, but to start and learn the basics and learn the software and so on, it's more than enough to do almost whatever. So I started with this MacBook Pro for a year and a half, more or less. At the time that I started to see that commercial projects started to come, I decided to invest on a good machine, on a good PC. That's the one that I'm still working on today, that has like 2 GPUs, because I use Redshift. That's a GPU render engine. Basically, the difference is that CPU, it's another part of the computer, and it's like the classic rendering system for years, but it's super slow. And with GPU, with the graphic cards, the rendering is almost real time if you have enough power. So in terms of art direction and to control your design and your animation, it's another game completely. So if you want to really dive into 3D, at some point you have to think about a good machine to work with. And now I'm working with it's like 2 1080 Ti's. That's the model of the graphic card. And it has like 32 gigs of RAM. And basically the important things for 3D are those.
Yeah. Oh, nice. 1080s and 2 of those. That's awesome. And that's where we're seeing all these stunning renders come out of, right? Do you use any cloud rendering services, or do you render on your machine?
I've used it for commercial projects, for long animations and so on, because deadlines and timings. Because on advertising, that's the field that I'm moving usually. Timings are super tight, so you have to deliver fast, and cloud rendering gives this opportunity to, it's just a system to upload your scene to the cloud, and some servers in other parts of the world render that for a fee. So on commercial projects with rushes, I've used them, but I prefer to work locally and to render everything on my machine, because at the end you are seeing how the frame is coming out, if there's any mistake with the render passes, if the specular or the cryptomat or the IDs, there are like masks for each individual object on the scene, if they are coming along well, if they are rendering correctly. So if you have a mistake sending the render to the cloud rendering, you have a problem too, because you will pay a render that would be useless. So I try to, everything that's personal, and a lot of commercial projects are rendered on my machine.
Beautiful. I would like for us to wrap up our conversation today, because we're already ahead of time, Marcel. We really, really appreciate you making this time for all of us at VFS and everyone watching who is our digital design community. And thank you, everyone watching, for being here. And asking all your amazing questions. Marcel, my last question is, how can people connect with you, follow you? What are some social media handles that you can share with us today?
Yeah, you can share me. You can follow me on Instagram and Behance, and you can check out my website. Maybe I think that somebody was sharing the links on the chat.
Yes.
Yeah. So and if you want to know anything, or you have any doubt, any personal doubt, just write me through Instagram or through my email that's on the website, and I'll try to answer that question as soon as possible. At the end, don't be afraid if you have any extra doubt that we couldn't talk in here. So just let me know through a private message. Don't be afraid. At the end, for me at least, I had this experience where I see the people that was working in the industry, and it was like, I don't want to bother him with my silly doubts, but it's not like that. At the end, everything is I mean, I'm working on 3D for 3 years or four. So I'm just starting as everybody. So just let me know if you have any doubt.
It's put so humbly, and you're rocking it, and you're a showstopper, and you're a sensation on social media, and I'm sure everybody would love to reach out to you. So thank you for creating that for all of us. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here, Marcel. A real treat. And now that I'm hearing this, I'm gonna request that we invite you again. So we're gonna hopefully have you for season 3 DD Talks again and catch up on all this work you do. I also want to say thank you everybody for watching. You guys are extremely special for us. Thank you for being a part of our community, and stay tuned for more DD Talks that are going to be coming up. You can always check out what's next on vfs.edu. And this is a wrap for us, Marcel. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Nida. Thank you, Max, and Vancouver Film School, and thank you everybody that is here listening and watching this, and hope that it was useful, at least any bit of the conversation for you. And thank you, and have a nice day, everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone, and bye for now.